Hi, this is Dave Workman of Workman Associates, financial planning firm here in North Central Indiana, and continuing our program of individuals in Cass County that are on the front line of COVID, helping other individuals is Mr. Brian Strong. Brian is the athletic director of Logansport High School, and he has taken some time out of his very busy day to kind of let us know about what's going on. So Brian, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Dave. I appreciate you having me.
It's great to have you here. And first and foremost, congratulations on that sectional championship for the Logansport football team. What a great honor. I know you're probably going to defer to other people that did all the work, but hey, that's a great thing for the Berries.
I'm so thrilled. I'll be honest with you. Oftentimes, people measure how things are going in a school by how well their football and basketball teams are playing. And we both know that that's not always the case. But the environment around here has just totally changed with the success that our football team has had. And so we're very proud of those kids in that program, and we hope to keep it going.
Well, that's great. That is great. Well, Brian, first of all, why don't you tell me just a little bit, and the folks out there, a little bit about your background?
Sure. Well, I grew up right here in Cass County. Lived my entire childhood here. Went to Pioneer for schooling all the way through kindergarten until I graduated, and then I ended up at Ball State. That's where I got my degree from Ball State in education. I taught for a few years at Westdale High School, which is just north of Muncie, and then became an AD. I was very fortunate to become an athletic director because it's been a blessing for me and for my family. And 15 years later, got to come back to Cass County here. I've been at the AD here at Logansport now. This is my 7th year.
Wow.
15 total years as an athletic administrator. And I will tell you, regardless of the challenges that we're experiencing with this pandemic, I still love my job. I love working with kids and coaches and just trying to teach through athletics. And that's always been my philosophy. We want to win every time we go out there. We also know that that's not reality, but what we can do is teach. We can teach these young kids a lot of life lessons through athletics, and that's our goals.
Well, that's great. I'll tell you, as someone who had 3 of our kids go through the Logansport program, we feel very good about it and still have a lot of fond memories and wish nothing but the best. But let's talk about what's going on. You go back, and if you could, in kind of a timeline from the genesis of this COVID back March 20, right?
Yeah.
March. It seems like 4 or 5 years, but it's one.
Sure.
In March, what you and your staff have done to kind of work through protecting Logansport's coaches and athletes and athletic teams and trainers and so on and so forth.
Sure. Well, when we go back to last spring and you can reflect on that, I think the first thing that hits you is that we didn't know anything about this. We didn't know anything about COVID-19 or how it passes and what the effects are. We just knew it was bad, and that we needed to do everything we could to try to prevent that spread. So shutting down spring sports was absolutely the right decision to make at that time. I know that affected a lot of people and a lot of kids, and that's something now that I've been very proud that we've been able to learn more and be able to implement what we've learned to try to create an opportunity for kids to get back to athletics. Because what we also learned, Dave, and what oftentimes people are forgetting, is that there was a bad outcome from kids being at home, not having that social relationship that they had with fellow teammates, not having that relationship with coaches, that mentoring that we also know is so important from their coaches. That daily interaction was affecting kids in a very negative way. Adolescent depression rose to rates that we've never seen before. And so, getting them back involved and giving them purpose was very, very important to us as a staff here. but doing it safely was the most important thing. And so we started with meetings early on, trying to figure out what this is going to look like. And you got to remember, Dave, there wasn't a lot of advice coming from people on how to handle this. And so, it was just trying to come up with how can we address what we know is going on with depression and anxiety and those types of things, but also what the potential of the coronavirus could be. And so, early on, we met as a staff. We met with our nurses. We met with the individuals here at the school. We met with the health department here in Cass County and tried to come up with the best absolute plan that we could, understanding that things are going to change as well. Things are going to change. And I've been very, very thankful that we had those meetings, because I think because of all that preparation, we've had a pretty successful fall.
Well, it sounds like it. Our daughter-in-law is a teacher down at New Pal.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, obviously, I work with a lot of people in Cass. I work with people in Pioneer. I mean, it's changing. There's absolutely no set, way to bake the cake.
Right.
It's different
Right.
in each district. And quite frankly, I was astounded that you guys got through the football season. I thought that was a real feather in your hat.
I did. I did not think that, if you would have asked me in August if we'd be sitting here today,
Exactly.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I wouldn't have put the house money on that for sure.
I tell you, it speaks to the dedication of the athletes to keep themselves in a position to not hurt their team. I mean, sacrifice is all part of sports, but
Sure.
they really sacrificed, I would think, a lot to make sure that they were able to play. That's probably the most impressive thing, Brian.
Yes. Early on, the first messages I gave to our coaching staff, and I still speak to this day, just had a conversation with one of my winter coaches yesterday. Our focus is just to try to be able to play. Don't worry about wins and losses and this and that, because the reality is we're going to lose kids throughout this to quarantining, because of close contacts and stuff like that. And if you think about it from a competitive standpoint, you're going to lose your mind, because it's just coaches. What folks don't always understand is, we may have a game tonight and a coach is told today that you've lost your number one pitcher and your center fielder. They're out because of a close contact with somebody.
Right.
And if coach, you got to understand, coaches are extremely competitive folks, and it would just drive them crazy. So we've been just trying to preach, let's just keep focusing on playing, keep focusing on that first part that we talked about in this conversation, that social interaction, that mentoring, and the wins and losses are going to take care of themselves eventually. So
that's great. I mean,
Yeah.
I coached many years ago, and you're right. I mean, you're thinking about is that W. And
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about the idea of in the morning that your players are going to not be there, that you counted on.
It's happened all fall. It's happened all fall to all sports, whether it's a regular season, an NCC tournament, a sectional tournament. It's happened all fall. And it's sad, and you hate it for the kids and the coaches, but it's also necessary to keep people safe.
Well, there are some great life lessons being taught.
Yeah.
No doubt. What's the current protocol for determining whether an individual gets quarantined or a team gets quarantined?
Sure. Well, it really falls back to, we're following what the CDC has asked for folks to follow, and that's if they've come into contact with an individual that is a positive case. So let's take that one, for example. You came in contact with somebody, you've been within 6 feet for over 15 minutes, then anyone that falls into that category will be quarantined. And I believe that's a 14-day quarantine right now. And that's the way we're losing the majority of our students, not just student athletes, but students. A lot of students have been put on quarantine. There's also the scenario of if it's a positive case, if that individual, be it an athlete or a student, tests positive, then they'll obviously be quarantined as well. Most generally ours, I think we've had we've had 2 student athletes at the high school that have tested positive. Neither of them during their season, surprisingly. That's, just statistically, you'd think you'd have somebody.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but with that being said, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of athletes that have been quarantined throughout this fall, some multiple times, and coaches for that matter. And so I would say what we're doing is working. If you look at those statistics, but you're also always evaluating. Can we be doing better? And that's that educational piece that we're still trying to work. The guard kind of dropped a little bit, right? I think it dropped a little bit.
Absolutely.
There.
We got a little fatigued. We got a little bit like, hey, the worst is over. Let's just get back to normal.
Right. And so, and maybe timing was good if you want to look at the kind of the pot at the end of the rainbow there, that now we're shifting into winter sports, and you got, it's kind of a fresh start, and let's really start emphasizing this stuff again, and really trying to do our best to prevent, the worst is when an entire team gets quarantined. That's the worst one, because now you're all done, and we've had that. Our girls basketball team right now is on quarantine. And so what can we learn from that? Let's make sure that we're staying in pods. The pod concept is a great concept. It's tough with team sports, really tough with team sports to do, but we can do it if we get creative to where you can hopefully avoid having your entire team be quarantined.
That's really, I just can't imagine the changes by hour, not even by day.
Yeah.
But what you thought at AM was noon. You had some athletes as well as some students that have actually been positive for COVID. Is that correct?
Yes, we have. Yeah.
Have they come back okay? Are all the kids okay?
Yeah. When you talk to them, that they most generally, it's like they've got the flu, or they've got a nasal issue, that type of thing. We haven't, and knock on wood, and thank God, we've been very blessed with. We haven't had anything very, very serious, because we know that that's possible. We know it's possible with COVID. But they've seemed to have bounced back very well. And, for what I can gather, it's like the flu or a cold, and they're bouncing back. Now, what scares you is the asymptomatic folks, right? And those folks don't even know that they got it. And so it's hard to have a message for them, but our message to our student athletes have been, and to our students in general, if you're not feeling well, stay home, because that's what needs to happen to prevent all this quarantining.
Which is tough, because obviously that puts the parents in a situation now. A child is home. I mean, it's been so difficult. This thing has been so difficult. I deal with a lot of older people that some are at nursing homes. I mean, it's really put a little bit of a test on the American spirit in so many different ways. And just this discussion has opened my eyes up to 2 or 3 things I hadn't even thought about, Brian. I mean, I know what coaches go to prepare through a season, and to think it can be changed like that in an hour is really amazing. So let me tell you, let me ask you, do you treat each team the same, or is tennis treated differently than football? Is girls cross country treated differently than girls basketball? Is swimming is it the same protocol for each sport, or is there a little bit of a variation?
Well, I think that's a great question, and what I would tell you is, in terms of the quarantining, et cetera, protocol, it's all the same. Now, within each sport, there's different things that we're trying to do, because every sport is different, right? Some of them have a lot of similarities, but I can take a tennis team and pod them up a heck of a lot better than I can a football team, because we've got to have 11 guys on offense and 11 guys on defense going at each other in practice. That's hard to keep pods of 4 or 5. I know our cross country coaches, both Cole and Brian were, they would set their kids up to where you were very rarely going to be around anybody definitely not for more than 15 minutes, to try to avoid losing kids in that setting. So it is a little bit easier there. Volleyball was a challenge. That was our fall indoor sport. That was really a challenge.
Right.
And so, you gotta, that's just a whole nother dynamic. And when we're coming into this winter back inside, it's really got us having to think a little bit harder about how to handle this. It was a blessing to be outside, to be honest with you. Now
I never thought about that cross country, you're out there, and individual, but now you got everybody put wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, wrestling, there's still some decisions that need to be made on wrestling. I'm very worried about these multi-team invitationals, where you could have, 8, 12 teams. And if one kid's got it, now all of a sudden 8 or 12 teams are quarantined. Can we reduce that number? Can we do a 4 team instead of an 8 or a 12? Just those are conversations we're having right now.
That's a great question. That leads me to the next question. Obviously, you're a Barry guy, Lewis Cass, King guy, but are you working closely with other ADs to try to get through this? Is everybody on the same team in regards to let's do it for the kids? We got to do it the best way for the kids.
That's been one of the best things, to be honest with you. Not only are we working together, we're leaning on each other.
Nice.
We're all experiencing the same challenges. While I told you I've always loved my job, there's been times that my head was beating against the wall here. And it's nice to be able to pick up the phone and call a John Bingaman or call a Greg Marchand and talk to them and understand you're not by yourself in this thing. And so we converse more often than we ever have. And that's been one of the positive things that's come out of this. And just to be able to bounce ideas off and see what other folks are doing. And because you're not going to think of it all on your own. It's impossible. There's too much to think about. And so that collaboration has been just invaluable.
That's really, there are some silver linings out of this. And I think that's great that we become a little less competitive with our neighbors and understand, hey, these are just kids and we're trying to get them through life.
Right.
That's a great point. What can, for the people that are watching this, parents, guardians, grandparents, what can they do? What can they do to help kids at this juncture of their life, going through all of these different changes? I mean, it's like nothing I've ever been through before. I can't imagine what a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old has got to be thinking right now.
Sure. Well, let me start with the worst case, and then we'll get back to the best case. But the worst is when a kid gets quarantined. And I would just ask parents to understand and guardians to understand, we don't like it any more than they do. I don't do this job to prevent kids from competing and playing athletics. And so I understand. But we're also in this thing together, right? You've heard that, and that's kind of become a slogan. But the reality is we're in this together. I'm just trying to do the best job that we can do to keep kids healthy and safe. And not only that, but they can bring it home to their families and to their grandparents and to the folks that we know are most vulnerable, right? And so, but then let's go from the prevention side of it. Know where your kids are at, know where they're at, and continue to talk to them about the importance of not being in large crowds, not being in that 6-foot diameter for longer than 15 minutes. I want kids to be able to socialize and be able to have a life outside of school and outside of athletics, but they also have to be responsible. And so we need the parents' help with that. Because we can't be there 24/7. And I also understand parents can't be, but we're in this thing together in terms of trying to prevent that. And then we talked about it earlier, and it's just that piece of, if they're not feeling well, just keep them home. Just keep them home and, get them feeling better. And then let's return and let's get back at it. Again, we're just trying to play sports this year, and that's it. So that would be my request.
Right. And, as a quasi-athlete from the past, I got to tell you, maybe this is going to be a bad thing to say, but there's not much I remember from chemistry class, except I could never remember that table thing. But the lessons I learned in what I called the largest classroom, and these kids spend more time with their coaches than any other teacher, and coaches are teachers. It's so important to have them out there. I tell you, Brian, this has been one of the most interesting, not that I've not enjoyed every single Zoom interview. This has been very, very informative. I hope people listen.
Yeah.
I tell you, the one thing I think Logansport schools, not the one thing, but a big thing that Logansport has for it is your leadership, Mr. Jones' leadership, Mrs. Starkey's leadership, people that want to be here and not just using this place as a stepping stone. People that say, these are where my roots are, I'm bringing my family up, and it makes all the difference in the world, that kind of commitment. And so I know you're a busy guy.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, Dave. I really do.
Well, I know you're a busy guy. You've kept my neighbor in check for about 7 years, and I know what a ne'er-do-well he is. But I just know the commitment you guys have, the time you put in is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And to think that now you've been thrown into this washer and you've come out like you have. Is really a testament to the character of the administration of our school corporation. So Brian, thank you so much.
Anytime. I love talking Barry athletics anytime, Dave. So thank you.
You can tell that, you can't fake passion. And you can tell that, Brian. So thank you very much. Safety to you and yours. And we'll look forward to those Barry's teams playing. Thanks so much, sir.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.